what are your 3 biggest learning lessons in your 13 years in the mountain biking coaching industry?
I think the number one thing I've learned, one of the first 3 things I learned is that not everyone is easy to coach. Not everyone is coachable. There are people who are easy to coach and there are people who next to impossible or impossible to coach. And they can be your best friend. It can be someone you ride with like regularly, but if you introduce the idea of coaching to such a person, the person who finds it very hard to coach might not necessarily dislike coaching, but when they undergo coaching, you quickly find that they want to do their own thing. They have their own mindset about what is right and what is wrong. I think that is probably my biggest struggle as a coach, identifying or coming to terms with people who I know, who I want to help them. I want to help them a great deal as a rider, as their friend, maybe as their teammate even, but they just don't show the interest or the inclination to be better as a rider. And they can feel that they can wing it themselves and they may not want to seek improvement. I think that's okay per se. But at the same time, I also find that those people who are very easy to coach, they are always asking questions. They are trying to find out more about how they can improve. And they are trying to create frameworks on themselves on how to structure their riding or structure their approach to riding. And I think that's ultimately more engaging and more fulfilling to me. Another thing I learned as a coach, especially in the mountain bike coaching space, is that people are always keen to get coaching from their friends. I think that's a great thing. I think friends are very well-meaning for a start. Usually people get into the sport from a friend who is more experienced. If you are a novice or first timer, your friend is probably going to lend you a bike. Your friend's probably going to bring you on a trail for the first time. Your friend's probably going to make some recommendations about what bike you're going to get or what equipment to buy. And I think a very responsible friend can and should be able to do all these things. But where I think a friend might falter is coaching their first timer friend through a trail, or even selecting the correct kind of trail for them to have their first few mountain bike experiences on. And I think that can be a bit problematic because good friends may not necessarily be good coaches. I won't go so far as to say that your friend may not know what they're doing. And I think the advantage of having a hired coach, a certified coach, is that, yes, of course, you do have to pay money for the coach, usually. We don't charge cheap, I have to say.
Of course.
The coach usually has an understanding of the framework and where the person is at. And a coach is usually able to assess whether this person is ready for this trail versus another trail, which might be too much for them.
Right.
A coach is probably better able to advise the rider on skills and drills that they must do at a lower level first before they progress to higher level stuff. And I think a coach is better able to understand the rider's mindset and provide some feedback for them. I think this is super important. Sometimes a rider comes to me and they might be riding for a few years. They're not so much a beginner anymore. But when I assess them and I see them ride, they look like they're a beginner, even though they've been riding for years. And then you come to the problem where I have to coach them and untrain them from all the bad habits that they may have picked up. And they may have picked up the bad habits from their friends who have been trying to coach them for I don't know how long. But I think this is the kind of challenge which I enjoy as an instructor and a coach. And I think that's it's a cool thing. It's an ongoing process. We're trying to change the mindset of people one rider at a time. I think the third thing that is important to understand that I learned as an instructor, right, and as a coach, is that a very, very good rider, a very fit and very credentialed rider, as in somebody who might be winning races or very fast or have the best Strava times. If you look on Strava, they always have the best times. These people may not necessarily make the best coaches. So a good athlete doesn't make a good coach or good instructor. I think more importantly, a good instructor or a good coach should be someone who is a good communicator and a good teacher, somebody who's willing to impart information. Do I think there are good athletes out there who are also good instructors? Yeah, of course, I think so. I think people who are good athletes, who enjoy winning and who understand the mindset of winning, they have every right to share their experience as people who have been in that realm to people who are maybe less experienced, who want to experience the same kind of progress with their riding. But I think to start off with, coaches and instructors need to come from a place where they get to understand themselves first, and they understand that they may not be the best communicator, or they may not be the best demonstrator, or they may not be so good at describing certain things yet. Until they get better at that, then they can call themselves somebody who is, okay, maybe I can start to be a good coach now. I can start to share the information in a way that is coherent, that is beneficial, that is going to not kill my my client, not kill my athlete on the first go. It's going to be a more collaborative and a more two-way feedback-based kind of thing.
Right.
And I think that kind of makes sense too, especially when you talk about higher performance people. Riders who want to get fast, they say, I want to train for this competition or whatever. They often go and seek advice from people who are already fast or who have already won events, similar events. You know, but when you talk the so-called accoladed person or the person who has already won this or that, they may not be able to accurately describe how they do certain things or why they're able to do certain things. A coach who is able to do that is able to break it down and say, hey, you know why this person got such and such and such accolades? Because they did this. I'll make a disclaimer right now, like I do race occasionally. I don't think I'm a very, very good athlete. I still think I have a lot of things to improve as a racer, but I do race. And I enjoy racing because in a sense that it's a way for me to prove to myself what I've been doing or what I've been instructing and what I've been sharing with people actually works. In a way, you got to set an example, right? What better way than to subject yourself to the same